you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Have you ever heard the tragedy of Pelagius the Wise? Or rather, in this case, Pelagius, the ancient Christian heretic. And also, why is it that some Calvinists accuse Arminians of being Semi-Pelagian? As the name would imply, Pelagianism is a doctrine first espoused by Pelagius in the 5th century. He was a sort of rival to Augustine. During that time, Augustine put forth some ideas that are sometimes viewed as proto-Calvinist, that is, pre-Calvinist ideas. His ideas weren't identical to modern Calvinist ideas, but they did have a lot of the sort of semblances of modern Calvinism, and focused heavily on predestination and determinism. Meanwhile, Pelagius, in opposing Augustine's view, denied doctrines like original sin, and instead put forth the idea that essentially humans could more or less save themselves, that we could pick ourselves up by the bootstraps, choose to follow God of our own free will, and essentially sanctify ourselves and save ourselves without the grace of God. Of course, this doctrine was rightly labeled as heresy by virtually every Christian theologian for the entirety of church history. But following it came a sort of softening of the view called Semi-Pelagianism. Here, they accept doctrines like original sin, but they still insist that the first step in the salvation process is man's to take. That is, man does not need the grace of God to make the free will decision to turn away from his sin and choose God and follow God in faith. After that, God might provide grace, which helps with sanctification, but to a Semi-Pelagian, the first step is the pure free will choice of man. So, how does this differ from Arminianism? Because many Calvinists will make the argument that a lot of Arminians are Semi-Pelagian. Well, the key difference is that to an Arminian, a human being cannot, of their own accord and of their own sinful nature, turn from their sin and choose to follow God instead. Instead, Arminians believe that all humans have been blessed with prevenient grace by the sacrifice of Christ. That is, grace that allows a person to be saved if they choose to do so. Essentially, where a Semi-Pelagian would believe that a human being can, of their own strength of moral character, choose to turn to God, an Arminian would instead believe that all humans need God's grace to turn to Him, but that because God wills that all people be saved, God has made that grace available to all humans. This is, of course, contrasted by Calvinist view of limited atonement, wherein Christ only died for the elect and not for all. One interesting detail about the differences between Pelagianism, Semi-Pelagianism, Arminianism, and Calvinism is the way in which they vary from monergistic to synergistic. Synergism is the belief that in the salvific process, it's a two-way street. That is, it's a relationship between man and God. Conversely, Monergism is the belief that the saving process is a one-sided affair. To a Calvinist, that would mean that God alone chooses to save man, and if God's made the decision to save you, then you're going to be saved. You have no free will choice in the matter. In the opposite way, but still qualifying as Monergism, Pelagians believe that the saving process is totally one-sided on the side of man. And so, where a Pelagian has human monergism, a Calvinist has divine monergism. Anyway, which one do you think is right? Pelagianism? Semi-Pelagianism? I hope it's not one of those two. Arminianism? Or Calvinism? Please consider the subscribe button to be your admission ticket to argue in the comments below if you so choose, but also please be nice down there. God bless, and have a great day.